Better Preach, episode 112, Why You Ramble and How to Fix It. Welcome to Better Preach, a podcast for Catholic leaders on developing and delivering great Catholic talks. I'm your host, Ryan O'Hara, a Catholic speaker who specializes in parish missions and parish retreats. And I'm so excited to join you on your journey of communicating the true, the good, and the beautiful. Everybody rambles. All of us do. Run-on sentences, stream of consciousness, too much information. We all do it, whether you're new to speaking or you're OG, it plagues us all. And the trick, though, is recognizing it, when it happens, exploring the possible root causes, and then figuring out, what you can do to fix it. And in today's episode, we're going to look at each of those three things. Rambling, what it is, why we do it, and what we can do about it. Before we start, please do stop by and say hi on Instagram at Better Preach. I would love to get connected. Let's get into it. Some people can speak in a perfectly polished, eloquent, and effortless way. Their words and their pauses flow seamlessly together. In fact, their choice of words and even the tone and pace of their voice is a thing of beauty. Then there's the rest of us, right? We ramble. When we're not careful, we can go down some crazy rabbit trails with the choices of words and sentences and paragraphs and ideas that we put together. Today, I want to take a look at this. What does it look like to ramble? Maybe you don't know that you're a rambler. I know I certainly am prone to rambling. So I want to look at what is rambling, why does it happen, and then what can we do about it? So my experience has been, you might be a rambler if any of the following happened to you. Perhaps you speak in run-on sentences. Everything is and, so, and. There's no periods. You never stop. Your sentences just go on and on and on and on. That's one example. Another example, you're into the word salad. And what that looks like is you're sort of blindly groping for the next best word. And you can't quite get it. You're always about a half sentence behind, a half idea behind, you're a few words behind, and it's not quite coming together. The next thing you might do is you find that you are repeating yourself. You kind of just keep coming back and saying the same thing over and over again, and not in a good way, because sometimes repetition can be quite a helpful thing to do in a talk when it's done well, when it's done strategically, but not when it's by accident and not when it's not by choice. Repeating yourself is a dead giveaway that you might be rambling. The next one, I see this, I do this all the time. You share too many details in a story. And usually it's a personal story. You got inspired in that moment and you just start telling this story. And this happens a lot where you catch yourself and you see, oh, here's a story that might be helpful, but it may not be helpful for where you're going in your talk. There might be a real connection in your mind to how it all fits, but actually it's a rabbit hole. It's a tangent. And you might be rambling. And so when you do that, oftentimes you haven't vetted all of the details of the story. You haven't decided what you're going to edit out and what you're going to include. You haven't pre-decided that, which is critical when you're telling a story. You just share too many details. You get it, you're there, you understand it, but for your audience, you're rambling. The next example would be stream of consciousness. It's just feels like whatever kind of comes to your mind, I am just going to kind of follow where my thoughts go, and I don't really have a plan, and I'm just seeing what next idea kind of grabs my attention. And you can kind of tell the way that you're speaking, it sounds like you're just kind of sharing what's coming to the top of your head. Well, you're rambling. The next thing you might notice, and this is kind of the last thing I'll point out, is you have lots of filler words, a lot of ums and a lot of likes, a lot of yas, a lot of so. Just see what I did there? Filler words bridge the gap between what we've said and what we're trying to figure out to say next. The ideas are coming out faster than you're processing even in your own head, and you're not ready for it. And so these are some examples. Have you done these things? Do you ever speak in run-on sentences in talks? Do you ever find yourself groping for words and then it sounds a little bit like a word salad? Do you ever find yourself repeating yourself and not in a good way? Stream of consciousness, too many details in a story, lots of filler words. Well, we've all been there. If you're doing any of these things, and perhaps even more, you might be a rambler. As I've thought about this, I was trying to think, why does this happen? And I know for me, there's a few things that I might be missing before I get the mic that causes me to ramble. Something might be missing in one of these four, I'll give you 4 P words. Something's missing in my prayer. Something's missing in my prep. Something's missing in my practice, and I think this is a big one, especially with new ideas or new parts of talks or new stories. I didn't practice them out loud. And I didn't take time to pare back my speaking notes or pare back the talk. So when you pray, you're getting a clearer sense of focus and where God wants you to land. And you're getting a sense of a conviction of the pathway you're supposed to carve through this talk. And it really helps you to stay on track. I think as I've prayed for talks more and more, I find myself less influenced by these temptations to go off script. That's number one. Maybe you didn't take enough time to prep. You're kind of winging it at the last minute, and you don't have a good plan for this talk. That's where the stream of consciousness comes in. That's where the run-on sentences comes in. That's where a random story that you haven't quite thought all the way through comes in. That's where the filler words come in. You haven't prepped. Again, you don't know exactly where this talk is intended to go. Next, you really didn't practice. And for me, if I'm going to tell a new story or I'm going to open a talk in a new way, I've made this mistake enough that I know that I need to say the story out loud. It's usually a story that I'm familiar with from my own life, but I maybe haven't shared it publicly before. I have to practice that out loud, even if I've given other parts of the talk multiple times. Oftentimes it helps me to even write it out, and that way I can begin to practice it and commit it to memory exactly the way that I want to say it. And finally, you haven't pared back your words. You haven't sort of looked at your notes and said, actually, we could kind of prune this a bit and make this a bit punchier and a little less prone to ramble. Okay, so those are four reasons why I think it happens. And my recommendation would be one of 5 things. You could look at each of these if you're prone to rambling, or maybe one or more of these in particular could be really helpful for you. If you notice yourself rambling, the first thing to do is to acknowledge that. And within yourself, I don't suggest acknowledging it to the group or your audience that you're speaking to. But when you become aware of it, I think the first thing I would encourage you to do is to slow down your rate of speech. What we're typically dealing with here is we are speaking faster than the ideas are keeping up in our mind. So our mouth is moving faster than our mind. If we can slow our mouth down, our mind has time to catch up. So that's number one, I would just encourage you to slow down. Even so much so, the next thing I'm going to encourage you to do, if you find yourself rambling, slow down all the way down to take a pause. And even as you pause, take a deep breath. It's in that pause, it's in that deep breath where you can gather your thoughts and decide with intention, where do you want to go next? That's the second thing. If slowing down doesn't help you, maybe you need to slow all the way down to take a pause, even so much to take a deep breath. This has been one of my principal convictions around what I've learned from this podcast. I've said it multiple times. I'll say it again. Paul George's episode 10, I think it was. He talked about pauses help the speaker, pauses help the audience. So that's number two. That's the second thing you could do. The third thing you can do is move on. Just move on to the next idea. Put a period on that sentence, take a deep breath, and then forge ahead. And when we get into that discipline begets discipline in the future, both in that talk, but also that practice of realizing, hey, I'm kind of rambling here. I'm going to bring this to a close. I'm going to put a period on this sentence, and I'm going to move forward. The fourth thing and the fifth thing are both things that you ought to do outside of a talk to make sure that you ramble less. The first three things are things you can do in the talk. Slow down your rate of speech, pause and take a breath, put a period to the sentence and move on. The fourth and fifth are things that you can and I think should do outside of these talks. That fourth thing is to practice new stories, to practice new sections of talks that you haven't done in front of a group before, especially new stories. This is where we often lose ourselves. And great stories don't just happen by stream of consciousness or just as you remember them. They really have to be put under a microscope and examined. And we have to be really thoughtful about how we go through a story. Oftentimes, just how you might tell a story to your friends isn't exactly the way that you would tell a story to a group of people. Oftentimes, we have to jump right into the middle of something, bring people right into the action, and then provide the context. That's not something that often happens just in everyday conversation. For instance, when I'm sharing about my testimony, you guys have heard me say this before, I always start off by saying, for me in college, it was a series of three things: bad grades, bad beer, bad relationships. Okay, so that sort of paints this picture of me in college. I would never say it quite like that to a group of friends. I would never just start telling the story of college that way. That sounds like not something I might share in conversation, but it actually can work in the context of a talk. Because again, I'm trying to summarize about 2.5 years worth of mispriorities in my own life. And so for me, that's shorthand to help paint that picture. So I didn't start telling my testimony by using those 3 B's, but that's something that developed over time because I needed to find a way to do some shorthand to kind of paint the picture of what college life was like for me. Okay, so practice. You've got to practice new material. You've got to practice new stories. And so much so, I think you need to say it out loud to actually hear yourself delivering it. For me, whether I'm in the car driving to an event or going for a walk or in the shower, whatever, I take time to say it like I'm going to deliver it and to see kind of how it sounds, if it goes long, where I trip up, what details may or may not be helpful, and so on. The fifth thing I think that can really help, whether you realize that you're rambling or not, listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. Great to have video. You can learn very particular things about watching yourself. But if you're just listening to yourself, you're paying attention to your words and how it all hangs together. And again, you might be your worst critic, but listening back to talks can really help to point out to you where things kind of go off the rails. And you can notice it. You'll see it probably as quickly, as anyone would, but it really helps to listen to yourself. And I think it's helpful too. You might have noticed that, boy, I feel like I kind of rambled in that section of the talk. And it might be as you listen back to that talk, if you recorded it, that no, you weren't too far off the mark. But it just, for whatever reason, it didn't feel quite right when you were delivering it. But oftentimes, yeah, I think we may be rambling and kind of going on and on and on in unhelpful ways, and listening back can really help. What I've seen is putting your iPhone or any kind of phone just nearby and recording a voice memo. The audio quality is excellent, at least good enough for you to listen back to get a good sense of your content. So today, I want us to tackle the ramble and to take an honest look at who you are as a communicator and how often you might be prone to ramble in all of the ways I described at the beginning, or maybe considering what might be missing in your preparation, prayer, pruning back, and so on. But also, what is it that you can do about it? How is it that you sort of address ramble in your talks? What do you do to prevent that from happening? I would love to hear your feedback. Please do reach out at ryanohara.org/betterpreach. There's a contact form right there. I would love to hear your stories of rambling and what you do to address it as a communicator. You have millions of choices when you listen to podcasts. Thanks for pressing play today. See you next time.